Okay, everyone, Wednesday morning, and yeah, big day yesterday. The day the prodigal son returned, a much loved, revered figure amongst the Celtic support. When he goes out, he can barely move for the love and adulation of the Hoops fan base, asking for autographs, asking for photos. It had been a while, but he made his return, and it's amazing. Yes, yesterday was my return back to the channel. In other news, Kieran Tierney was unveiled as a Celtic player, and we're going to touch on that today and a few other things. Do have a wee bit of transfer chat for you today that we'll do for the final 5 minutes or so of the video, probably longer, to be honest, if I rabbit on. I know that a fair amount of you don't like the transfer rumours as such, so you can tune in for the majority of this video, because we're going to start by talking about Kieran Tierney. The club made their big social media announcement of his return yesterday. Sure, we've had Brendan Rodgers confirming it in like January or February. We've also had, I think it was mentioned officially by the club for the first time in like a financial report they released, maybe like February or March. We even had like a brief glimpse of it in the season ticket campaign a couple of months ago. But yesterday was the day that we got to see Kieran Tierney back in the hoops for, I think, the first time since the 4th of May 2019, which was a 3-0 win at Pittodrie that secured 8 in a row under Neil Lennon. The photos are just brilliant. And yeah, I mean, personally speaking, I found myself with a huge smile on my face when the images of him back in the hoops emerged. I knew it would be cool, but I probably wasn't as prepared to still feel amazing when like it was officially confirmed by the club and we got that long video that they posted. The first one was to do with Arsenal and kind of London themed. And I was thinking, all right, that's fine. And then they put out a really good one of Tierney's best Celtic moments. And they had the caption, "He pressed play, we hit repeat." Which, you know, fair play to Celtic. That was pretty good. They obviously had a fair amount of time to prepare for this, but I think it's fair to say that the club did a good job with the Tierney announcement. They even had a hashtag. Of course, they need a hashtag. Back to Paradise, with the emphasis on the K and the T. But yeah, some pretty amazing moments and hopefully more to come. Unsurprisingly, he will wear the number 63 in his second spell at the club. That's the number he wore first time around. I don't know if there was ever any real debate that he was going to wear any other number. I think it's, I don't know if we've had another number 63 in our history. We probably have, but certainly not one who made such an impact. And that's the number he would have broken through with from the academy. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So pretty iconic, like that a lot. He spoke to Jerry McCulloch in a Celtic TV interview. It's around about 5 minutes. I think the club stuck a couple of those out free to us fans. If you want the rest, you need to be a Celtic TV subscriber. I have a way. That sounds really troubling. I have a genuine legal... I've got an account, right? Well, one of my pals has got an account that I use to see the Kieran Tierney stuff. Stop interrogating me. There were a few things that Kieran Tierney spoke about with Jerry McCulloch that I just want to touch on, because you may or may not have seen this. So, yeah, interesting that he was asked about being unveiled as a new signing. Well, I found it kind of interesting because obviously first time round that wouldn't have happened with him just coming through the academy. You don't really get an unveiling when you're a 17-year-old player who's been playing for the B team. But it did get me thinking, how many players have we had who have starred for us, left us, and then come back to the club? And I don't think there's too many. Obviously, Kieran Tierney, Jota, who's a fairly recent one. Fraser Forster would be another one. In fact, I was looking at like the record sales we made as a club, and I think like 3 of the top 10 have actually now returned back to us in some way, which is pretty cool. The only other one I could think of was Charlie Mulgrew, and he didn't really star for us the first time round, obviously did the second time. You'll probably have some more in your mind, players who have returned to the club. I'm probably forgetting someone fairly obvious, but it's pretty rare for Celtic to re-sign a player. As much as you get a lot of transfer rumours about it over the years, it doesn't actually happen too often. So for us to have Jota and Kieran Tierney at the moment, having sold both for 25 million each a number of years ago, is pretty cool. Now, Kieran Tierney says he's a different person now to the one who left the club in 2019. He says when you move away from home, you grow up, broaden your horizons, etc. I think virtually everyone watching this would attest to that. Player-wise, he says we're getting the same player. He'll work as hard as he can for the club. And yeah, just generally watching his interview on Celtic TV was just a bit of a reminder of the kind of no-nonsense person that Kieran Tierney is. He speaks honestly, but he doesn't overcomplicate things. He doesn't really, tell you things that you don't need to know. It's very basic with him. You're going to get 100% effort from me, and let's face it, that will be more than enough if that does happen. And yeah, he tends to do his talking on the pitch as well, which is great. But definitely came across how big a moment this is for him returning to Celtic. Rather interestingly, he hasn't actually been inside Celtic Park since he left the club in 2019, which I'll be honest, I found that quite, strange is the right word, but I certainly found it interesting. Not sure exactly why that's been the case. There's probably a good reason for it. Maybe he enjoyed his time so much as a player that he would kind of struggle to come back and just be watching. I know he felt, I think, a little bit awkward when he first left the club, and he was getting some criticism from some sections of the Celtic support that I always thought was just a bit ridiculous, to be honest, given what he'd given for the club and the money that he'd made us, etc., and wanting to further his career in a much stronger league than ours. He then went back to the point of how he feels he's changed as a player, also as a person, over the past 6 years while he's been away from the club. And listen, Kieran Tierney was a huge player for us first time round. I think he stood in as captain on a number of occasions. He was always someone that one of the guys that you look to in the tough times to give us some sort of lift. One of the leaders, clearly, even though he was pretty young. But he was a kid first time round at the club. Made his debut, I don't know, was he 17, 18, something like that. He'd only just turned 22 when he left the club for Arsenal. He's now 28, returning to the club. And I was looking, actually, just out of interest, I was looking at the ages of the current members of the Celtic squad. And I know age isn't everything. You get really experienced 27-year-olds same way as you get, I guess, inexperienced 33-year-olds. Like, the number itself isn't everything. But I think it is interesting to note that Tierney comes into Celtic as the 4th oldest player in the entire squad, which is kind of weird to think about, given that we'll always probably think of him as the kid that broke through. He's not a kid anymore. He's older than Cameron Carter-Vickers. He's older than Dyson Maeda. You can probably guess the only 3 players that are older than him in the entire squad: Kasper Schmeichel, James Forrest, Callum McGregor. And think about how much we look to those 3 guys, Schmeichel, McGregor, Forrest. They're always like the main 3 that players bring up whenever the topic of experience comes up. And I'm not saying this in any way of having any doubts over him being able to do that. I think he's going to be absolutely fine. The same way that I think the majority of us felt Callum McGregor was going to be a good Celtic captain, a great Celtic captain like he has been. You just feel like Kieran Tierney's going to slot into that squad on his return and is going to immediately become one of the leaders because he was first time. But as I say, he's 6 years older now. He's not a kid anymore. He's not just going to be a leader. He's going to be one of the real experienced guys in that squad. And I think that's kind of the the really fascinating bit about Kieran Tierney coming back. And I also think it's really interesting that he brought it up twice yesterday. Once was in response to the question from Jerry McCulloch, but then later on, off his own bat, really, he brought up the whole thing of how much he feels he's changed over the last 6 years. Kept mentioning the fact that he played in Spain as well for a season with Real Sociedad. Had injuries there, but still sampled a different league, obviously a whole different country, culture, world, basically, in Spain. So he feels he's come on a hell of a lot. And I think for me, that was the big takeaway from the Tierney stuff yesterday. He's no longer the kid that left us. He's coming back as one of the real experienced players, which is mad to think about. So amid that flurry of KT content, and it was glorious, just if you're bored at any point today, just fire down the Celtic X feed, and there's loads of different wee bits and bobs from Kieran Tierney that will make you smile. The club did also announce a friendly match. It's going to be the first friendly match that we play in pre-season. It's against Queen's Park at the City Stadium or Lesser Hampden on Friday, July the 4th. We also played them last pre-season. I think it was a bit of a cracker. It's not a game that I ever actually saw the full 90 minutes of, but I believe it was 6-4, wasn't it? 'Cause it was going on around the same time as Wimbledon. I remember cracking that first set Celtic patter. Oh, you really had to be there, everyone. Anyway, we've now, I think, basically got our full pre-season schedule all confirmed. So let's just have a wee look. So we kick off at the City Stadium against Queen's Park on Friday, the 4th of July. 7:45pm kickoff for that one. Our next match is that Cork Super Cup clash against Cork City, Park E Kiev. As I said previously, that's a 6pm kickoff on Tuesday, the 8th of July. We then travel to Portugal for a training camp. Now, this hasn't been confirmed by the club, but I believe there's going to be a closed-door match in there to begin with, potentially against a lower league Portuguese team. It's probably one of those that we're never actually going to get to find out too much about. We'll then have a clash against Sporting Lisbon, our fellow Hoopies. Estadio do Algarve, Wednesday the 16th of July. Don't think a time has yet been announced for that one. Then we return to Celtic Park. First home friendly in a couple of years, I believe. Newcastle United under Eddie Howe. Saturday 19th of July, 3pm. We then have the, what are they calling it? The Como Cup? Como Trophy? I think it's a Como Cup. Regardless, yesterday the actual fixtures were announced for that, so we're going to play Ajax, as I mentioned on yesterday. I thought that would be the case, and that has been confirmed. So it's Ajax versus Celtic at Como's Stadium on Thursday the 24th of July. Time to be confirmed for that. And I then think the Friday is a kind of off day in the tournament, and you then have, basically depending on whether we beat Ajax or lose to Ajax, we'll either have a final or a third, fourth place playoff of the Como Cup against either the hosts or Al Ahly. And that will either be on the Saturday the 26th or Sunday the 27th. And then we'll go into Flag Day the following week. Okay, the other thing I just wanted to talk about before I go was a report from Belgian journalist Sacha Tavolieri. And I think it may be worth taking note of, even for you transfer cynics. I see you. So basically, Tavolieri is a bit of a Belgian Fabrizio Romano, as far as I can see. He breaks big transfer stories, tends to focus on Belgian players. For example, a lot of stuff in his various social media feeds, and I did have a look just before doing this, about Kevin De Bruyne moving to Napoli. Which is interesting, I guess. That's quite a kind of cool transfer, I think. But that's apparently happening. Also a fair bit on Florian Wirtz, who is German, moving to Liverpool. Tavolieri has a X-following of over 150,000 people. So he's a big name, highly regarded, clearly, and is obviously likely to be even more reliable with Belgian-related things. And that's quite important because we're talking about a Belgian-related thing. He tweeted last night to say Celtic FC back in the race for Michel-Ange Balikwisha. Interested in the Royal Antwerp FC winger since last summer, the Scottish club's management has reconnected with Balikwisha's camp and begun new discussions regarding personal terms. More news coming soon. I know that my good mate from the Celtic Way, Ryan McGinley's actually been in contact with Tavolieri, and without breaking Ryan's news for him, I think it's fair to say that Tavolieri feels that there's something in this, and again, he will have a lot of contacts in Belgium. Now, just a wee refresher on Balikwisha, he recently turned 24, he's playing for Antwerp, he's been capped I think every youth level by Belgium up until the under-21s. Hasn't played for the full national team yet, but they're pretty strong. We were linked with him heavily last summer before he tore a thigh muscle, which meant that he missed the second half of 2024. Now, if we just head over onto the wonderful transfer marked, just have a wee look at Balikwisha's season last year, because I think this tells us a wee bit about how his campaign went. So, yeah, not a lot of appearances there, clearly. That's down to the injury issues. The majority of the appearances coming at the end of the season. But, yeah, if we just look at his Jupiler Pro League matches, this is the Belgian top league, obviously plays the opening match of the season, then tears his thigh muscle, misses a hell of a lot of football, returns for one game here, which would have been, the 8th of December, and then I think picks up another injury, and then returns for another game at the start of February, and then misses another 3 games through injury. So, that to me would be a bit of a concern, missing all of those matches. Did return, early to mid-March. You can ignore the first National League, I think that's the B team or whatever. You can ignore whatever the Croquet Cup is. I'm assuming that's the National Cup. Stay on track, Hamish, stay on track. This is the important bit. So this is the end of the season. The Belgian League goes into playoffs. And Balikwisha, as you can see, playing the entirety of matches the whole way through at the end of the season. So appeared to have come over his injury issues that blighted the start of the season. But he also does seem to pick up a number of injuries. Just in a separate thing, this is his injury history and a number of matches missed here as well. A lot of muscle injuries, those 3 from the 24-25 season that we touched on. And also the previous year as well. I remember reading that he'd torn a thigh muscle the previous, or was that actually 2 years before? Yeah, it was 2 years before. So he missed time from middle August until the middle of October through another torn thigh muscle, and also missed significant periods in the 23-24 season as well. And a number of injuries there, a number of games missed last season, more than any. So, yeah, that would be a bit of a concern for me, if I'm totally honest. I guess Celtic will hopefully know more about the situation than me, and he might just be pretty unfortunate with that. And he appears to be a pretty talented player, and he did finish last season pretty strongly. So maybe that's just convinced Celtic that he's the right player to come in. As I say, when you watch him, looks very talented, this is 6 months ago I watched him, I think looked quite direct. I remember thinking at the time, and this would have been prior to us signing Jota, I remember thinking he was a bit of a hybrid of Dyson and Jota, and that he had real pace like Dyson does, and he was really direct, but could also dribble a bit like Jota, whereas Dyson doesn't really tend to do that. So I think as a player he looks really good. He's out of contract, I think, at the end of this coming season, so the middle of 2026. So Celtic probably feel that we can get him for a cut price. I think 5 million was mentioned previously. Would it be less than that these days? Maybe 3 million, something like that. Maybe the club just feel this is, a player that we really want, and it's worth going with it and hoping for the best. Yeah, I'm always wary with these things because it's not my money. But I just would be a bit concerned about spending that money on a player who's had a number of injuries in recent years, especially when we're kind of quite reliant on that at the moment. I know Dyson's there, but with Jota missing the first half of next season. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that one, but it seems like something's going on there. So Michel-Ange Balikwisha, one to make a mental note of and really keep an eye on mentally. Also a tweet from Sky's Anthony Joseph saying that we have reopened talks over a potential deal for Sarpsborg winger Sondre Orgeseter. He says it's understood that we face competition from clubs in Germany and the Netherlands. No concrete offers on the table as things stand. So a fair few old names popping up again, but maybe, just maybe, the transfer mill is starting to turn. It should really be a wheel. Although a mill does turn. See you later, everyone.